Have you ever heard that voice inside your head? The one that talks all the time, commenting on every decision you make, criticizing your choices, bringing up doubts, remembering the past, and worrying about the future. But now, stop and think. If that voice is always talking, who is listening? Most people never realize this. They live identified with this voice, believing that this internal narrative is who they are. But what if I told you that wasn't true? Now, before we go any further, I need you to look at your hands. Have you ever noticed a half moon or the letter M marked on your palm? If so, this is no coincidence. There are ancient teachings that talk about those who carry these symbols on their hands. Those with this mark usually have a unique sensitivity, a keen intuition, and a calling to something greater. But to understand this call, you first need to awaken. And it all starts when you understand that your thoughts aren't really you. From the moment you wake up, your mind starts talking. Get up, there's so much to do. Why did you say that yesterday? You should have tried harder. This dialogue never stops. It defines how you feel, how you perceive the world, how you see yourself. But here's the secret. That voice is not you. Before you go on, do something important. Subscribe to the channel now. The next videos will bring even deeper revelations, and you won't want to miss them. If you feel that your mind has been trapping you in doubts, fears, and insecurities, stay with me. What you're about to discover could completely change the way you see yourself and the world around you. Now that you know that your thoughts aren't really you, we need to go deeper. If you bear the mark of the half moon or the letter M on the palm of your hand, know that this is no accident. Many ancient cultures believed that those with these marks possessed a special calling, a unique sensitivity to perceive what most people ignore. And one of the greatest hidden truths is this: there's something inside you that observes everything in silence. Think about it. If your mind is always talking, judging, questioning, who is listening? Try it now. Close your eyes for a moment and observe your own thoughts. You can hear them, right? But if you can hear them, it means there's something beyond them. Something that doesn't speak, but perceives. Something that doesn't judge, but only observes. This something is your true essence, the observer. Most people spend their entire lives trapped in the illusion that they are their thoughts. They believe every story that voice tells. They let themselves be carried away by fears, doubts, and insecurities. But those who carry the mark, those who have been called, have a rare opportunity to awaken. And the first step is to understand that you are not the voice in your head. You are the one who hears it. Now that you know that, we need to uncover something even deeper. Why does that voice exist? And more importantly, how do you stop being controlled by it? Your thoughts shape the way you see the world, but they don't define who you are. Most people believe that their mind is their identity, that this inner voice represents the truth about themselves. But if that were true, why is that voice often so harsh, so critical, so full of doubts and fears? Now, stop and think. How many times has this voice made you feel small? How many times has it convinced you that you weren't good enough, or that something terrible was about to happen? But what if I told you that this voice isn't here to help you? In fact, it's a reflex conditioned by years of experiences, fears, and expectations. You weren't born with this voice telling you that you're not capable, that you should worry, or that you need to please others. It was built up over time, like an echo from the past. Now, pay attention to this. If you have the mark of the half moon or the letter M on your hand, it's because you have a deep connection with something beyond the ordinary. You're not just here to follow a predetermined path. You are here to see beyond, to awaken. But to do so, you need to understand that this voice is not your essence. The real you is behind this narrative. You are the one who listens. You are the one who perceives. You are the one who has the power to choose what to believe. And that's exactly what most people never realize. They live trapped in this illusion, believing that their thoughts are absolute truths, without realizing that they can choose to free themselves. But then, if that voice isn't us, what are we really? Our next step is to discover who is behind the mind, and the answer to that could change everything. Now that you understand that this voice is not you, we need to talk about the impact it has on your life, especially on your peace of mind. Think about the last time you felt anxious, worried, or afraid. What really caused that state? Was it the event itself, or was it the way your mind interpreted what was happening? The truth is that anxiety doesn't come from what happens around you, but from the story your mind tells about it. You see, when a challenge arises, your mind doesn't just perceive it, it begins to narrate it as if it were a bigger problem than it really is. This is going to go wrong. What if I fail? Things will never get better. And here's the most important part. That voice isn't trying to help you, it's trying to control you. It uses fears, doubts, and insecurities to keep you stuck in a cycle of suffering. And the more you believe it, the more power it has over you. But those who carry the mark, those who have the half moon or the letter M on their palm, have a differential, a strong intuition, a greater connection with what lies beyond the mind. And this connection could be the key to breaking out of this cycle. Because the truth is this, you don't have to accept everything your mind tells you. Mental suffering arises when we cling to the stories of that voice. But the moment you realize that you can simply observe without reacting, you begin to free yourself. And the big question is, how do you do this in practice? How do you break this cycle and regain control of your own mind? Now let's go beyond spirituality and look at science. What have scholars discovered about this voice that never shuts up? Neuroscience research shows that most of our thoughts are not conscious. They are automatic. Imagine your mind as a computer program running in the background. It repeats patterns, beliefs, and fears that you haven't even consciously chosen. Since childhood, your brain has been absorbing ideas from the world around you. What your parents said about you, the criticism you received at school, the fears you developed from past experiences. Over time, all this has formed a belief system, a set of patterns that now operate without you realizing it. And this inner voice is nothing more than the repetition of these old programmings. But here's something even more important. Your thoughts are not facts. The problem is that most people believe them without question. They assume that just because a thought arises, it must be real. But the truth is that it may just be a reflection of the past, an old recording that keeps being played back. Now, if you have the half moon or the letter M on your palm, it means something powerful. You have a unique sensitivity, an intuition that can help you realize what most people don't, that the mind can be reprogrammed. But to do this, you first need to learn to separate yourself from this voice and observe your thoughts consciously. And that brings us to the next question. If this voice can be your greatest enemy, how can you turn it into your ally? Let's find out now. Now that you understand that your thoughts are automatic and don't always reflect the truth, an essential question arises. Why are we still stuck with this voice? The answer is simple and, at the same time, profound. Because we believe it is us. Most people spend their entire lives identifying with this internal narrative. When the mind says you're not good enough, they believe it. When the mind says this will never work, they take it as truth. But what would happen if, instead of reacting to each thought, you simply observed it? Try it now. Close your eyes for a moment and notice the thoughts arising. Can you see that there is something inside you that just observes? That observer is your true self. And here's the most important detail. The more you identify with this voice, the more it controls you. But when you become the observer, that voice begins to lose its power. Now for something even more profound. If you have a half moon or the letter M on your palm, it's no coincidence. You have a calling to see beyond the ordinary. Your intuition already tells you that there is something greater behind the mind, something that few people realize. And this perception is the key to breaking the cycle. But the question now is, if you're not that voice, then who are you really? That answer could change everything. And that's what we're going to uncover in the next step of this journey. If you're not the voice in your head, then who are you? The answer to this question is something that many spiritual traditions have been trying to explain for centuries. But the truth is that no one can give you that answer. You need to experience it. Think about the most difficult moments in your life. What really caused your suffering? Was it the situation itself or the thoughts that arose about it? This will never get better. I'm not good enough. Things always go wrong for me. Now, realize something important. You didn't consciously choose to think this. These ideas just came up. But if you can perceive these thoughts, it means that there is something inside you that is beyond them. That something is the observer. The observer doesn't judge, doesn't criticize, isn't afraid. It simply perceives. It is always present, in silence, behind all this mental chatter. And that is its true essence. And here's what few people know. The more you strengthen this awareness of the observer, the less power that inner voice has over you. Now, if you have the half moon mark or the letter M on your palm, it means that your sensitivity to perceiving this truth is greater. You have a wake-up call to see beyond the illusion of the mind. And when you begin to realize who you really are, something extraordinary happens. You regain control of your life. But before we get there, there's one last obstacle we need to understand. Your mind doesn't want you to discover this. It will fight to keep control. So how do you deal with it? How do you take the next step to really break free? That's what we'll see now. Now that you understand that it's not the voice in your head, a new challenge arises. The stories that voice tells you. From the moment we are born, our minds absorb beliefs from the environment around us. Some of these beliefs come from family, society, school, and over time they become the lens through which we see the world. But the problem is that many of these beliefs are limiting and distorted. Think about it. How many times have you accepted something as true simply because your mind has repeated it over and over again? I'll never make it. Things are difficult for me. This is the way I am. I can't change. These phrases are not absolute realities. They are just mental programming, stories that have been told so many times that they have become your truth. But here's something powerful. These stories can be rewritten. And that's the difference between those who carry the mark of the half moon or the letter M in the palm of their hand. You have a greater sensitivity to perceive what is beyond the obvious, to question what many simply accept without thinking. And now I ask you, how many of the stories your mind tells about you are really yours? Because the moment you realize you can change that narrative is the moment you regain control over your own reality. But the big question is, how do you do that? How do you stop identifying with these stories and rewrite your own life? Long before modern science studied the human mind, ancient spiritual traditions already taught something fundamental. Suffering doesn't come from events, but from our identification with thoughts about them. Buddhism, for example, has taught for centuries that the cause of suffering is attachment to the stories the mind tells. And here's what few realize. Thoughts arise, but you're not obliged to follow them. Meditation, an ancient practice, is not about emptying the mind, as many believe. It's about training yourself to observe thoughts without identifying with them. Now, try that for a moment. Close your eyes, take a deep breath. Just watch your thoughts pass by like clouds in the sky. They come and go, don't they? But if you can observe them without reacting, it means that you are not them. This simple exercise has the power to transform your life, because it shows you that you have a choice. You can feed the negative thoughts and give them power, or you can simply let them pass. Now, if you have the half moon or the letter M on your palm, there's something even deeper about it. Many believe that these marks appear on people who have a greater spiritual connection, an intuition that can be strengthened through this conscious observation of the mind. So the big question is, how do you use this knowledge to free yourself from the control of the inner voice once and for all? That's what we're going to find out in the next step. Now you know that your thoughts don't define who you are. You've learned that this inner voice is just a reflection of beliefs and patterns accumulated over a lifetime. But the question that really matters now is, how do you free yourself from it? The key is disidentification. Imagine you're watching a movie. At first, you may get so involved with the story that you feel fear, sadness, anger. But suddenly you remember that it's just a movie. The emotion loses its strength because you realize that it's not real. Now apply this to your mind. Every time a thought arises, instead of reacting automatically, simply observe. Ask yourself, is this true, or is it just a repeated pattern? Is this voice helping me or limiting me? And above all, who is listening to this thought? The moment you realize that you are the observer and not the voice, its power over you begins to disappear. If you have the half moon or the letter M on your palm, this is a sign that you have a greater sensitivity to perceiving this truth. Many who have this mark feel, from an early age, that there is something different about them, a connection with something beyond the visible world. And this connection can help you break this cycle and regain your true power. But the question is, how do you strengthen this state of presence? How can you make it a habit so that your mind no longer controls you? To understand and practice how this change can happen, I want to tell you a story, Anna's story. Anna has always had an apparently balanced life, a good job, friends, and a loving family. But inside, something consumed her. Every night when she went to bed, her mind became a battlefield. The internal voice began, "You're not good enough. Remember the mistake you made? What if things go wrong?" This voice accompanied her in everything, dictating her emotions and controlling her decisions. And the worst part, she believed every word. Until one day, tired of living in this cycle, Anna decided to look for answers. She began to study and observe her mind and realized something that changed everything. She wasn't that voice. She understood that her thoughts were just echoes of the past, automatic patterns that no longer needed to define who she was. And so she started practicing something simple but powerful. observing her thoughts without getting involved with them. At first, it was difficult, but over time, something changed. The voice still came, but now Anna saw it as background noise, something she could simply ignore. And as she stopped giving power to this internal narrative, her anxiety decreased, her clarity increased, and for the first time, she felt truly free. This transformation didn't happen overnight, but it did happen. And here's something curious. Many people who have the half moon or the letter M on their palm report going through similar internal journeys, as if life were calling them to awaken to a greater truth. And now I ask you, how many times have you found yourself stuck in this cycle, believing everything your mind told you? The good news is that, like Anna, you too can break out of it. But there's a simple exercise that can speed up the process, and that's what we're going to explore now. Now that you've understood that it's not the voice in your head, I want to guide you through a simple but extremely powerful exercise. It will help you break the cycle of identifying with that voice and bring more clarity to your life. Try it now. Close your eyes and take a deep breath. Just for a few seconds, feel the air going in and out of your lungs. Now, observe the thoughts that arise. You don't need to control them. Just see them as clouds in the sky, coming and going. When a thought arises, ask yourself, is this true or just a reflection of the past? Does this thought really define me, or is it just a habit of my mind? Say mentally, I am not that voice. I am the one who listens to it. Take another deep breath. Now feel the silence between your thoughts. That space of silence is you. This little exercise may seem simple, but if done regularly, it begins to change something inside you. Little by little, your mind loses control and you begin to live with more lightness and presence. If you have a half moon or the letter M on your palm, this could be a sign that your path is deeper, that your intuition is guiding you to awakening. And this awakening begins with awareness of your own mind. Now, I want to ask you a question. If this inner voice isn't you, then who are you really? This is the most important reflection of this journey. Now you understand something that few people realize throughout their lives. You are not your thoughts. That voice that narrates, judges, criticizes, and remembers the past is not your identity, just a reflection of beliefs, experiences, and patterns that repeat themselves automatically. The real you is the one who observes that voice. Think about it. If that voice were really you, how would you be able to observe it? But you can see it appear and disappear. You can feel how it changes from one moment to the next. If it were your essence, it couldn't be questioned, but it can. And the moment you realize this, a new world opens up. A world where your thoughts no longer control your emotions, where you no longer have to live at the mercy of that internal narrative. Now look at your hands. If you have a half moon or the letter M on your palm, understand that this could be a sign that you are more sensitive to this truth, that you have the ability to see beyond the illusions of the mind and awaken to something deeper. And this awakening begins now. From this moment on, every time a negative thought arises, remember this simple mantra. I am not that voice. I am the one who hears it. This may seem small, but it has the power to completely transform the way you live your life. But now, I ask you a question. If you're not that voice, then who are you really? This question, although simple, has the power to take you beyond everything you've ever known about yourself. And to close this journey, I want to invite you to take one last step. Now that we've reached the end of this journey, I want to leave you with a question that could change everything. If that voice isn't you, then who are you really? This question may seem simple, but its answer goes far beyond words. I want you to stop for a moment and reflect. Feel this question inside you. And now, I want to give you a special invitation. Share your answer in the comments. It doesn't matter if your answer is short or long, if it's a certainty or a doubt. The important thing is that you begin this process of questioning, because you're not alone here. This channel is a space for seekers, for those who feel that there is something more than meets the eye. So if this message made sense to you, subscribe to the channel now. The next videos will delve even deeper into this path and reveal truths that can transform your perception of life. Activate the notification bell so you don't miss out on what's coming next, because this is just the beginning. And before you go, take one last exercise with you. The next time a negative thought arises, stop, smile, and say, "Thanks for your opinion, but I don't need it." This simple act could be the key to your mental freedom. See you in the next video.